Everyone recommends the latest GPUs from AMD and NVIDIA for gaming, but I have a different thought. This is the RTX 3070, and I think it's one of the most underrated GPUs. 1440p resolution is quickly becoming the sweet spot for gamers, and this thing handles it like a champ. In this video, we'll look at how the 3070 holds up in semi-modern titles, what kind of performance you can expect at 1440p, and whether it's worth picking up in today's market. So let's dive in and see why the 3070 might just be the best value in 2025. We don't care what they say, we're already on our way. Before I get into the nitty gritty and talk about actual performance on this thing, because I did test it in my setup here, I want to talk about resolution real quick. I said 1440p is becoming the primary resolution for gamers, and I wanted to be able to explain it numbers-wise. According to the Steam hardware survey, 1920 by 1080, which is 1080p resolution, is still 53.23% of gamers. But that number is dropping. It dropped by 1.21% last month. 2560 by 1440, that is up to 20.52%. It's up 0.33% over the past month. It is climbing very quickly and becoming very mainstream. That's because 1440p monitors are coming down in price. So when the prices come down, obviously more people adopt it. It's easier for people to get into it. And that's why I was more interested in testing this on that resolution, because it's quickly becoming that sweet spot for gamers. So the 3070 can fit into this slot really well because it can game at 1440p, but it doesn't cost as high of an entry price as like the 4K requirements. High-end graphics cards, high-end systems that cost a lot of money, you can kind of get into it for a more reasonable price. Okay, before I get into the gaming experience and the benchmarks and stuff like that, I want to talk about my test setup here, and we'll start with the 3070 itself. This is the Asus ROG Strix model. It is a very big card. The GPU requires two 8-pin power connectors. Asus says that you should use a 750 watt power supply. I am not. I am using a 650 watt power supply, which I'll talk about in a second. It's got 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Oh, the other reason that I wanted to go with the Asus one, even though I'm not testing it in here, is it has good overclocking potential. Because the cooler is so big, because Asus usually over-engineers their cards, you can kind of pump up the juice on this per se and get a little bit more performance out of it than stock. So that's the GPU that I'm using. Let's talk about the specs of my system itself. This system is rocking a Ryzen 5 7600, the non-X version. It's got 32 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM running at 6,000 megahertz. I have a Hyte Q60 liquid cooler to cool my CPU. It's a little bit overkill, but I didn't want to bottleneck due to any kind of heat constraints in this case. Speaking of the case, this is the Hyte Y40. This is one of the original designs of it with black inside and white outside. They now have like an all-white version too. I thought it was a really clean design, and my 3070, I wanted to vertically mount it just to be able to see that amazing looking cooler. So this was the case I decided to go with. And the Hyte Q60 fits in this case. I knew it did. It's got a really thick radiator on it, so not a lot of cases can fit it, or if they do, it kind of fits weird. This fit really nicely. The fans you can see on the front are kind of recessed back, so I have room for the GPU. I thought it was a really nice setup. I did add a thick FP12 fan to the exhaust of this case. It comes with a standard simplistic fan. These are a little bit more beefy. They're thicker. I think they're 25 millimeter fans. And so I wanted it to match the design of the cooler too, so it just all integrates together. The whole system's plugged into one thing. For the power supply, like I said, I only have a 650 watt power supply, even though they call out a 750 watt. That's the InWin Series P65. It's 80 plus gold, still good, and fully modular and everything, because it really doesn't need it. They say it needs it, and that's for overclocking potential. I knew I wasn't gonna be overclocking, so I put a 650 watt in here. As far as why I chose these parts to go with my 3070, I wanted something that was a realistic build. I didn't wanna just slap it onto a test bench with a 9800 X3D or the newest gen everything. So I think this is a good setup for this. It worked out really well, and as you'll see in the benchmarks in a second, this is very realistic as far as you building it at home and then seeing this kind of potential out of your 3070. So let's talk about our real world gaming performance that I saw in this system with my 3070. The first game I tested is Fortnite. I love testing it because it's still very popular today. I understand it's not a new game, but they constantly are updating it with better graphics, better quality textures and stuff. They added ray tracing since the game came out. There's a lot of options when it comes to that game, so it's still very relevant today. Even if it's not a new title, they have still updated it so much that it performs like a newer title. Now, for my settings, I ran pretty out-of-box settings. I really didn't adjust too much. DLSS was set to quality. That's when you put it on high presets, it automatically sets that stuff up. I turned off nanite and global illumination. I turned off ray tracing as well. And I gave it a mix of kind of medium, high, and epic settings. I like my view distance on epic so I can see the enemies really far away. But I also like the texture qualities kind of high. I turned shadows down to medium or low. So yeah, it was pretty customized, but you can see the settings on the screen. If you want to pause it, you can go back to it. The 3070 saw really good FPS numbers in Fortnite. I got 190.9 FPS average and 58.3 for the 1% lows. I want you to take a look at the top left corner of the screen. I have the MSI Afterburner overlay on there. The stuff that I like to look at is the temperatures of both CPU and GPU, the utilization, which is your percentage that it's actually putting on that component, and then FPS numbers and stuff. There's a couple other things in there. I've got video RAM usage and speed of the RAM and stuff like that, but you can ignore those. They're not that important. For Fortnite, the CPU usage, note that it was 75% utilization, and the GPU was at 90%. The way you can kind of tell if your system is bottlenecking the GPU is if your utilization of your CPU is very high, let's say 100%, and your GPU utilization is very low. If it was only at 50% or something, or 60%, I would worry, and that would be the point that the system is now the bottleneck for the GPU. Second game I got into was Overwatch. I didn't change my settings to like performance type settings. I left them on high or ultra. The render scale was at 100%, so I didn't use any kind of upscaling or ray trace or DLSS or anything like that. It was just straight out of box numbers. The FPS that Overwatch saw was 130.1 average and 57.4 for the 1% lows. Now the utilization is where I was really interested. I, again, was around 90% utilization for the GPU, but the CPU was at 38% use. Very low demand on the CPU. It was all on the GPU. If I tweaked my settings and stuff, I could probably get much higher FPS than I saw. But I was more worried about just an out-of-box experience, really, just plugging it in, turning it on, letting the system kind of detect and see what the numbers were. Something else to keep in mind, my monitor that I used for all of this testing is an HP X27Q is the monitor that I used for this. It's a 1440p, 165 hertz display. Deals can be had on good 1440p displays that are about 144 to 165 hertz. And you're still not breaking the bank when you come to check out. Again, your GPU utilization was high, so I moved on to something more demanding, and that was Hogwarts Legacy. Hogwarts Legacy is known for being very VRAM usage intense. It uses up your video RAM on your card a lot. I immediately was worried that I would have artifacting or problems with the game. I think they've done a really good job at optimization. I ran this in two different configurations. No ray tracing on either one, high settings for all of it. The whole thing was all high. However, I did one with DLSS and one without DLSS. So upscaling and no upscaling. I wanted to see what kind of a jump it would give me. With DLSS on at quality preset, I saw 100.9 FPS average and 36.8 for the 1% low. With DLSS on, actually both of them, DLSS or non-DLSS, I saw about 7 to 7.5 gigs utilized. Now remember, this card only has 8 gigs of VRAM. So just something to keep in mind, if you're playing very VRAM intense games, you may see some hiccups or downgrading of quality. You may see like grass that doesn't quite render in, or people that don't render quick enough. I didn't notice any issues with my game, and I played through a couple different scenarios through the game, a couple different map areas, and I didn't see any kind of hiccups or delay or stuttering or anything like that. But it was hitting the top of that VRAM buffer. Now, I turned off DLSS, and believe it or not, I didn't see a difference in the quality of the gameplay or anything. I actually saw a difference just in the FPS. I got 88.1 average and 29.4 for the 1% low. Both DLSS and no DLSS saw about a 50% CPU utilization and about a 96% GPU utilization. So a little higher than Overwatch and Fortnite, but also kind of bumped up on CPU utilization for this game. One thing I did see, I think DLSS actually makes the picture quality look better. It's just my eyes looking at the game. I think it looked more crisp and the colors were a little bit more vibrant and stuff like that. It could just be all in my head, but as I played through it, I actually enjoyed the experience more with DLSS than without. So that's what I played it on for a couple hours when I got wrapped up in the storyline, but that's beside the point. Now, the last game I decided to run is Cyberpunk 2077. It is still a very demanding title. Even though it's a couple years old at this point, you still put a demand on the system, a tremendous demand actually. The average FPS that the 3070 saw was 88.3 with 47.5 for the 1% lows. Now, CPU utilization was at 80% and GPU utilization was at 90%. This is the average. That kind of jumps all over the place depending on where you're at. But that is a very high CPU utilization just because the game is very demanding on your CPU. Different games require different demands. Overwatch was not demanding at all on the CPU. It was all to the GPU to produce those high frame rates. And then CPU, obviously, in like Cyberpunk, was very demanding. There's a lot going on, a lot of people interacting, cars driving by. There's so many computer-generated things happening that you use your CPU up quite a bit. Okay, so my test setup turned out really good. The 3070 performed actually way better than I expected. I did expect the frame rate numbers, but I didn't expect the smooth gameplay performance. A benefit of using the 3070 is that the technology has been there in almost all the games leading up from when the 3070 came out, and driver improvements have increased performance over time. Let's talk about competition. What comes into play with the 3070? The 3070, like I said, it's 3 generations old now. You've got the 30 series, 40 series, and we're now into 50 series. What else is out there for the price range? The 3070 you can pick up, I checked on eBay before I started this video, anywhere between $250-ish to $300. You can actually find some of these as low as $200, depending on your area. You might be able to search local deals for better prices. What can you get for that kind of money new? Entry-level cards from any of the vendors. NVIDIA's own 5060 costs $299. $300 is the cheapest I've seen a 5060 for. AMD has the 9060 XT, 8GB or 16GB. If you go with an 8GB card, you're looking anywhere between $269 was the cheapest one I saw, all the way up to like $320-ish, $330-ish dollars. If you go with the 16GB card, you're looking at $400 and up, depending on the model. Remember, this is the Asus Strix model. This is like the highest end model back in the day. It's got the super beefy cooler, overclocking potential, you name it, it's got it. Another company, Intel, has started making cards that can compete in this category. The B580 is now readily available. They go for about $250. Now that has 12 gigs of VRAM versus the 9060 XT and 5060's 8 gigs and the 3070s. So if you're looking for VRAM, the B580 is kind of beating all of them. The cards that come into the same price range as the 3070 are either the same or worse than the performance of this. I like looking at this chart because it kind of gives you an idea of what you can expect as far as performance on this, and then you can look ahead and kind of see, okay, if I were to upgrade, obviously I wouldn't buy a 4070 because it's only 30% better than the 3070. So that's your price to performance versus the other cards. I don't have direct comparisons and stuff. This is not like a breakdown of it. This is just my recommendations to you. I want to try to make it as simple as possible and cut out all the extra stuff. I want to talk real quick about upgradability. I was really impressed with the 3070 integrated into the modern hardware. It paired really well with it. The system did not bottleneck the card at all, whereas if you paired a 7600 with a 5080 or 5090 or something crazy like that, the system is now your bottleneck because your CPU cannot keep up with what the card requires. So always build balanced PCs. I'm all about that, balanced PCs. Finding the right hardware to match with each other. The 3070 matches great with modern hardware. You could pop it into a system, play games, and then you could upgrade it later. Speaking of upgradability, the GPU is one of the easiest things to upgrade in your system because this is it. It's just this, 2 plugs, and you slot it into your motherboard. There's plenty of videos on how to upgrade GPUs. In fact, I think I have one here on the channel. It's really like a 5-minute job. And if you're already running an NVIDIA graphics card like the 3070 and you buy another NVIDIA card, your drivers will automatically be detected when you turn the system on. It may need to do an update or something like that, but it's all within the NVIDIA app. And it's super simple. It is not complicated at all, and you should be able to get to gaming and immediately see an increase in performance. If you're looking to upgrade your old computer or build a new one like I did, and 1440p is your target resolution, the 3070 is my go-to budget recommendation. Plus, it can save you a few bucks along the way. Don't let new GPUs fool you. The 3070 still has plenty of fight left in it. If you enjoyed today's video, do me a favor and give it a like for the YouTube algorithm. Or better yet, comment down below what GPU you have in your system. Is the 3070 an improvement or not so much? Thanks for stopping by. And as I always say, I'm Danny with Danny's Tech Channel, and I'll see you in the next one.